We've come to Buckingham Palace in highly unusual circumstances.
Welcome to MsMojo, and today we're highlighting our top choices for the most troubling moments in the royal family's recent history.
It was all a bit of a shock, and it was... I was frightened, I don't mind admitting it.
Number 10, King George VI's death.
At the time of the operation, as you know, structural alterations were discovered.
Of course, the blockage in the lung.
It's time we gave that blockage a name, sir. It was a tumour.
King George VI was crowned in 1936 and ruled until 1952, when he perished due to prolonged cancer. His death signified the end of an era, and a new one began when his daughter, Queen Elizabeth II, was thrust into the throne unexpectedly at a young age.
George had been preparing Elizabeth to one day succeed him as the British monarch and as head of Commonwealth. The way he'd done this is to essentially demonstrate to her what the role of monarch required, and also give her opportunities to begin to develop her own public role.
After years of health issues, like lung cancer, which was worsened by his smoking habit, it was generally regarded as a peaceful passing. So it wasn't a shocking death. However, he had become a widely adored leader during World War II, and Elizabeth's coronation was a deeply emotional and somber moment for the royal family.
In his broadcasts and his visits to the Empire and to Commonwealth countries, he made himself a friend with people all over the world.
Number 9, Megxit.
So there was no other option at this point. I said, we need to get out of here.
Megxit was a seismic moment in royal history, referring to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's decision in 2020 to step down from their roles within the royal family. It exposed deep fractures in the family and brought a plethora of issues into the public eye.
So when I ask the question, why did you leave? The simplest answer is
Lack of support and lack of understanding.
The couple spoke openly about the impact being a royal had on their mental health, with Meghan revealing she often grappled with depression and even experienced thoughts concerning taking her own life while a royal. She sought help, but it was refused because they believed it would reflect poorly on the family. Additionally, she was the victim of harsh criticism, which was often racist and sexist, causing widespread controversy.
It's not just a tabloid. It's not just some story. You are making me scared.
Number 8, the Annus Horribilis.
1992 is not a year on which I shall look back with undiluted pleasure.
1992 was an exceptionally poor year for the royal family and was so bad, Queen Elizabeth II called it an Annus Horribilis, Latin for horrible year. 1992 saw the breakdown of 3 royal marriages, Prince Charles and Diana's separation, Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson's separation, and Princess Anne's divorce from Mark Phillips. Ferguson was involved in a scandal where photos were published of her toe being sucked by an American businessman.
The Duchess drove at speed for the airport at Aberdeen to catch a scheduled flight to London. No longer the privacy or privilege of an aircraft from the Queen's flight for the Duchess. Life outside the family, it seems, is just starting today.
Windsor Castle, one of the Queen's favourite residences, set on fire, destroying huge parts of the building and priceless art pieces. At the end of the year, she made a monumental speech calling it her horrible year, a rare moment of openness for a usually reserved monarch.
I sometimes wonder how future generations will judge the events of this tumultuous year. I dare say that history will take a slightly more moderate view than that of some contemporary commentators.
Number 7, Abdication Crisis. Edward VIII was crowned king in 1936, but abdicated the same year to marry Wallis Simpson, controversial because she was both divorced and American. This was unprecedented for a monarch and created significant political and social turmoil at the time.
For her, he risks the power and the glory of his position and creates the greatest British crisis in centuries, as he clashes with cabinet and parliament.
The 1930s had a large stigma towards divorce, so marrying a woman twice divorced was a major scandal. In the end, Edward chose love over duty, which was viewed as selfish by many.
The thing that he was most clear about was that he could not be an effective king without the support of the woman he loved, and that this relationship meant more to him than anything.
After abdicating, he was given the title Duke of Windsor and spent the rest of his days in exile. His brother, George VI, was completely shocked to become king. but thankfully became a much-loved figure once ascending.
Turn the hesitations into pauses and say to yourself, God save the king.
I say that continuously, but apparently no one's listening.
Number 6. Wearing the crown jewels. The crown jewels are kept in the Tower of London today, and many were acquired via exploitative colonial practices.
It's hurtful to many Indians around the world and here in the UK that actually it was stolen. It was taken from Dalip Singh, who was a 10-year-old boy king during colonisation.
These royal treasures were taken using violence, coercion, and exploitation of colonial nations. The famous Koh-i-Noor diamond was stolen from India during the British Raj after the Second Anglo-Sikh War in 1849, when Britain annexed the Punjab region. Other jewels were obtained using similar means, and now their ownership has come under increasing scrutiny.
The Koh-i-Noor diamond from South Asia and the Cullinan diamonds from South Africa essentially highlighted the draining of wealth, resources, and the subsequent inequality that empire wrought around the world.
They serve as a reminder that the wealth of the royal family came at the expense of many other nations and peoples. The royal family's reluctance to return these jewels reveals the dark deeds of British colonialism that can still be felt today.
The whole purpose of the crown jewels is to set the royal family apart and evoke awe. But I think we're no longer in so much awe, and growing sections of the population now see this increasingly as a flashpoint for dissension.
Number 5. Diana's death. Diana died tragically in a car crash in Paris, 1997, after a high-speed chase from paparazzi. Millions mourned her death, causing an outpouring of grief worldwide. The Kensington Palace was flooded with flowers and tributes, and more than 2.5 billion people watched her funeral.
It set everybody off in front of you. And you don't realise just how contagious that is. I don't even think I could count how many people there were that were actually just crying, sobbing.
Significant criticism of the royal family followed, since the public believed the monarchy failed to support Diana during her struggles. This includes her tumultuous marriage to Charles, which was full of unhappiness and infidelity.
There's no better way to dismantle a personality than to isolate it.
So you were isolated?
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
Many blamed the paparazzi and media culture for her passing, fueling discussion about privacy and media ethics. Her death prompted the family to try appearing more in touch with the public.
I, for one, believe there are lessons to be drawn from her life and from the extraordinary and moving reaction to her death.
Number 4. Frequent racism. The family regularly comes under scrutiny for racism, with Meghan Markle's interview with Oprah Winfrey being one of the most prominent examples. She revealed there were concerns and conversations about the skin colour of their son, Archie, before he was even born.
There's a conversation with you,
with Harry,
about how dark your baby is going to be?
potentially, and what that would mean or look like.
In 2006, a video was released of Harry using a derogatory slur for people from Pakistan. In 2005, he also wore a Nazi costume to a party.
It was one of the biggest mistakes of my life. I felt so ashamed afterwards.
Another example is Princess Michael of Kent, who wore an offensive blackamoor brooch in 2017. You would think with such a colonial past, the family would be more sensitive about these issues, but often they are not.
And you're not going to tell me who had the conversation?
I think that would be very damaging to them.
Number 3, Anne's attempted kidnapping. On March 20th, 1974, Princess Anne was returning from a charity event. While on her way home, Ian Ball confronted her and attempted to abduct her at gunpoint. This was a particularly violent kidnapping attempt. Shots were fired, causing injuries to several individuals.
I tried to fire back at him with my gun. I missed the first shot, and then the gun jammed. Ball was pointing his gun at Princess Anne and saying, and he said, "You drop your gun or I'll shoot," or something to that effect.
Ball was mentally unstable and believed that he could ransom the princess for a significant sum. Despite the danger, Anne was courageous and refused to comply with her attacker's demands.
And then he grabbed my arm and pulled. Unfortunately, well, I don't know whether it was me holding on to him or him holding on to me, but anyway, we maintained the status quo for a bit. So I wasn't going anywhere, put it that way.
Ultimately, he was apprehended and the attempt was thwarted, but he was later deemed unfit to stand trial. Instead, he was placed in psychiatric care for 41 years and still resides in the hospital today.
Your greatest danger is still
the lone nutcase who's, just got enough to put it together.
Number 2, Andrew and Epstein.
You've been on his private plane.
Yes.
You've been to stay on his private island.
Yes.
You've stayed at his home in Palm Beach.
Yes.
Prince Andrew is famous for what many see as his entitled, unpleasant and downright disgraceful personality. He's also known for his shady connections, such as the son of infamous human rights abuser and dictator Muammar Gaddafi. However, he's most well known for his history with Jeffrey Epstein, the globally infamous abuser of underage individuals. Andrew has been accused of having inappropriate relations with Virginia Giuffre when she was only 17 years old.
He knows what happened. I know what happened, and there's only one of us telling the truth.
He denied these allegations, and he's since stepped back from royal duties. The public now has a largely negative opinion of the man, especially after his disastrous interview in 2019, where he poorly attempted to explain his friendship with Epstein.
The problem was the fact that once he had been convicted,
you stayed with him.
I stayed with him, and that's the bit that as it were, I kick myself for on a daily basis.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Number 1, the Marburg Files.
What is written here brings the greatest shame upon this family. Our people would rightfully never forgive us.
The Marburg Files were documents seized by the Allies in 1945, detailing Operation Willy, a plot to persuade Edward VIII to join the Nazis, to convince the UK to enter into peace negotiations. They tried convincing Edward that the King and Churchill were planning to assassinate him, opening him up to the idea of staging a Nazi kidnapping and blackmailing the UK into admitting defeat.
The situation is we have a disgruntled Duke who doesn't feel he's being taken seriously in Whitehall, who is in close contact with a German agent, Charles Beddoes, who is believed to be passing information to that agent.
The worst part is that Edward encouraged the Nazi bombing of the UK and thought it would encourage peace between the nations. We don't know if he accepted, but we know that he had Nazi sympathies.
Many thanks to you for the wonderful time that we had with you at the Obersalzberg. This was Hitler's mountain retreat. This is just an indication that he was very happy to be used by the Germans.
Prince Philip was speculated to have had similar feelings, with 3 of his sisters marrying Nazi aristocrats. What do you think is the darkest moment in the royal family history? Leave a comment letting us know.
Is there anything you feel has been left unsaid that you would like to say now?
No, I don't think so.